All right, Mr. Ramesh Agarwal, National President of the All India Transporters Welfare Association, joins us on the show. Dr. Sharad Kohli, Senior Economist, also with us on the program. Mr. T.S. Ramakrishnan, Railway Expert, with us on the program. Jitendra Gupta, Auto Expert, also joins us on the show. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this important conversation. Dr. Kohli, I'll begin with you. This is absolutely stunning what the Prime Minister has just announced. We know the plight of the truck drivers, how they drive, what conditions they live in, what kind of debacles they usually are subjected to, because there is this timeliness attached to their professions as well. How is this announcement extremely important? It is also very encouraging for freight movers and transporters, in the sense that there is finally some structure, there is some dignity attached to being a truck driver in our country.
Well, thank you very much, Vineet, and a very good afternoon to all the NewsX viewers. I think Prime Minister seems to be touching those untouched areas or untouched sectors or untouched people of the society who normally one would not think of. Something which is so practical. 70% of our freight moves by road, and if I'm not wrong, I think Mr. Agarwal would verify this number. There are about, to my mind, about 5 million trucks moving around, and even if I take one driver per truck, although there's more than one always, there's always a two driver, plus of course there are helpers and so on and so forth. So if we extrapolate this number into the number of families affected by this decision, because an accident on the road, because of lack of sleep, because of lack of rest, because of lack of food, because of lack of clean drinking water sometimes, can be fatal, and it can affect about 2.5 to 3 crore families. I'm just taking one truck driver per truck, although it's more, but I'm being very conservative. I'm taking one, so about 5 members in a family. One truck driver loses life, it affects 5 members. So I'm taking a population of about 2.5 to 3 crores who are impacted by this. Now, we need to keep in mind, that there are on the national highways and expressways, especially the newly made ones, the NHI has taken care to make those refreshing centers. I would say they are restaurants, they are toilets, and so on and so forth. But we should keep in mind that these centers are meant for passenger vehicles. They are not meant for freight carriers. Because imagine if in a recreation center, in a resting center, if 10 trucks enter, it can probably clog the area, and they put barriers where the large and heavy vehicles cannot go in. So I think to be thinking of truck drivers exclusively, where they get drinking water, they get time to rest, I think it's an excellent move, and this will improve the quality of movement which is happening. It will improve on the efficiency of the drivers. It will bring in more accident-free drive, I would say, straight away. But I think here is a word of advice, and I'm sure Mr. Agarwal would appreciate listening to this, which is that the people, the operators, the transport operators, they need to allow, as Prime Minister said in his speech, कि जरा सा देर हो जाता है, तो the operator says, कहाँ रह गया था भाई? It normally takes 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. तुमको 15 घंटे कैसे लग गया? तुमको 18 घंटे कैसे लग गया? And so on and so forth. So when there is going to be a resting center, I think the operators would have to be prepared that if there is a place for a driver to sleep, I think the operator should discount that time and include that time in the transportation period. Or if a driver spends time to have food, although drivers do have, there are those dhabas, and there are various places for, some of the dhabas I find, they even put those, the typical charpais, the jute charpai, where these truck drivers sit, they rest, they eat. In fact, some of them, some of the bus drivers, they get free food also, but not all truck drivers get that. So they do not get proper sanitation facilities, proper clean food is not there. They end up eating at places which are unhygienic, and this also leads to truck drivers falling ill. I have often heard truck drivers, incidentally, the chauffeur that I keep, Vineet, I would like to, why I am knowing so much about this area is, my own driver, has been with me for 10 years, but before that, he used to be a truck driver. So often he, during a long drive, he narrates his old stories, that how they used to drive for 18 hours, 20 hours, not getting time to sleep, not getting hygienic food, not getting hygienic drinking water, clean drinking water. So I think these facilities are very welcome. They will improve. India needs to bring down its logistic cost. India needs to bring in logistic efficiency. If we are looking at a Viksit Bharat, if we are looking at foreign investment, we are looking at more logistics required. You know, the goods have to move from here to there. And I'm sure this step is going to bring in that efficiency and that I would say safety to the drivers, which is much needed. I'm sure Mr. Agarwal, leading the Transporter Operators Union, would concur with my views. Unless he's got a difference, I would.
Right. Let me listen. Let me hear. Right. And Dr. Kohli, there's also this concept of hazardous pay, you know, which is exercised throughout the world. You know, if you're working at an oil rig, you know, you obviously earn more. If you're working and servicing TV towers, you obviously earn more because it does involve a certain level of danger. Do you think that is also a concept that we have been kept bereft of?
Well, Vineet, with due respect to Mr. Gupta, I mean, because the announcement has just come, so I don't think we should call these rest centers becoming prostitution centers or anything of that sort. I think that is driving things to a bit of an extreme. But due respect to Mr. Gupta's opinion, I think that is stretching the imagination a bit far. But a few things I think, which I think Mr. Agarwal would concur with me, and he would like to, because we've seen that a lot of truck drivers, you know, to kill the stress, to kill the fatigue, they get into drinking. I think the most common problem for all truck drivers is because in order to be awake for those 2-3 hours, which Mr. Agarwal very rightly pointed out, the average sleep time is 2 hours 50 minutes. So one of the solutions I have found that truck drivers find is they get into drinking. So they get into alcohol, or they get into smoking. You know, they smoke bidi, cigarettes, and all sorts of things. I think that is something which I feel, obviously that may not be government's task directly, but I feel the Motor Transport Union must set up counseling centers for these truck drivers where they should be told that alcohol is not the way to kill your fatigue. Now, of course, with these centers coming up, some part of the problem would be solved. And what I would, you know, what Mr. Gupta said wasn't extreme, but I would say that they can become drinking centers, or they can bring their own bottles from here and there. You know, sometimes it's hooch. You know, they end up buying, you know, those spurious stuff. So I think which can be very detrimental to health. So what I would suggest as a value plus services for these centers, apart from food, clean water, proper sanitation, and so and so, I think these centers can also serve as counseling centers where these truck drivers, since they are away from the families, very rightly pointed out, they are on travel for a month or so. I think counseling centers where they are made to that, look at the army men, they remain away for months together. So these truck drivers can be counseled that they don't get into drinking, they don't get into smoking, and so forth. Then I think medical checkups is another aspect which these resting centers should have. So if there is a doctor on duty, or some kind of basic medication is there where somebody's got a headache or he's running fever. So what these truck drivers do is, because they know they have to reach their destination, so they keep driving with the fever on. They keep driving. So I feel medical facilities at these truck centers, I hope they are there. They must be inherent. But in case it is not there, through your show, we need let this message reach. A medical facility should be there for them. A counseling center should be there. And a very sensitive issue, which I think Mr. Gupta touched upon, I'm sure this is for Mr. Agarwal to take up, because a lot of truck drivers, they complain that the remuneration they get after driving for so long, you know, obviously, I mean, if you ask most people who are part of the workforce, probably 75% or will say we are not satisfied with the remuneration. Well, most people are not satisfied, but a remuneration which matches their expenses, the fact that they remain away from the house for a very long time, the fact that they have to remit money to the family, depending on the distance being traveled, depending on the kind of truck being driven, depending on the number of days being spent, I think a relook without disturbing the logistic cost to the industry, of course. As I said, it's a very sensitive issue, and I'm sure Mr. Agarwal, आप मुझे इस बात के लिए क्षमा करेंगे, क्योंकि ये ट्रक ड्राइवर्स की जो जनरली प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं, हालांकि आपने बहुत अच्छे से उसको अग्रवाल साहब ने उसको समझाया है, very you know astutely explained, I must say, by Agarwal साहब. पर मैं चाहूंगा कि ये 3-4 मुद्दे हैं अग्रवाल साहब, अगर if this can be addressed, Vineet, I hope you concur with me.
Chali, let's quickly listen into what Mr. Agarwal. We've run out of time. We'll take a short break on that note. Would like to thank all my guests. Be right back.